And last but not least, of course, we have Professor Graeme Bailey. Professor Graeme Bailey joined the Cornell faculty in 1996. Professor Bailey is not only a professor of computer science, but also a concert-level pianist, an expert in judo, a motorcycle racer, a certified emergency medical technician and/or EMT, and a mathematician. He's a true innovator in his own right, bringing enthusiasm and inspiration to every problem he fathoms, regardless of how disconnected and unrelated it might seem. To add to his impressive credentials, Professor Bailey is widely regarded as one of the best lecturers at Cornell. His lectures are engaging and stimulating enough to pique the interest of even the poetry majors in the audience. So without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Professor Graeme Bailey, who will be speaking about artificial intelligence and the human interface.
Camera, lights, and action. Okay, so I'm a certified nerd, and I have to say, with an introduction such as the one I had, I'll see what I can do to live up to it. But as a certified nerd, that means I'm used to using envelopes. These things are marvelous for demonstration purposes, but they're so technical and they're so tricky. So I thought I'd use the front of an envelope rather than the back in order to be unusual. However, the talks that I've been listening to so far are amazing. So then I went onto the back of the envelope in order to try and make more sense. Well, then we saw some amazing cartoons, and then I started thinking more, and then it became the inside of the envelope, which means they're going from a 18-minute talk to a 21-minute talk to a 4-hour talk. Well, we'll see what we can do in terms of time compression. What I wanted to kick off with was something that Miki Agarwal said at the beginning. She talked about finding one's passion. Well, for me, as probably for many of you, and certainly from the speakers, it's really hard to find a passion when there are so many things we're passionate about. For me, if I pick a couple of things, it's mathematics and music. In terms of mathematics, I used to try to understand what's the shape of the universe. Well, I didn't really care about the universe. It was much more, how does four-dimensional space wend its way through 5, 6, 7 dimensions, and how does it connect? Clearly, highly applicable. Yes? Well, yeah, it's a good try anyway. So the question that came from there is, okay, I do all sorts of these snazzy things, and then I do music. I play piano and cello, and I'm lazy, so I'm a good sight reader, so I tend to enjoy everyone else's music sort of vicariously. But in some sense, music has great impact in terms of saving the world. It feeds, well, we'll strike on that in some particular point. So then I do these sort of two divergent career directions. I do a ton of mathematics, I do a ton of music, and then I come over to the States and then find that you're supposed to do one thing and not two things, and so I pick on one thing and try and push that really strongly. Can I even read these things? Yeah, so there was this wild time when I sort of migrated from doing straight abstract mathematics to doing more applied things, and then doing applications in computer science via medicine and all this sort of nonsense. So I was sitting in my office on a quiet, it was probably Tuesday afternoon, I don't know which day of the week it was, but it was just after lunch, and I have a phone call from a colleague over at Ithaca College. Ithaca College, strong music performance program. Great colleague, he's a tenor, he sings, he's super. The phone call went thus. My pianist's wife has just gone into labor, and I have a big concert about 2 hours from here. What are you doing this evening? Well, I checked the calendar, shifted a few things around, and then jumped in the car with him and we drove over there. Now, I've heard him sing, he's heard me play, we'd never performed together. So we talk about some of the stuff in the car as we go across there, and we touch a few things when we get to the auditorium just to sort of, check balance and stuff, but singers, they can't sing through the entire repertoire when they suddenly arrive. Because they'll be worn out he's a great singer, but still, you lose a lot of the edge for the actual performance. So then we stop and have a bite to eat, and then go on stage. So stage, packed house, People have paid money to come to this concert. It was part of a fairly serious series of concerts. And of course, how much rehearsal have we done? Well, virtually none. Did I know all the music? No, some of the music had been specially written for him. So I sit down at the piano, and he's there, and we're both expecting that this is going to be an exciting moment. So we start. Now, of course, we had touched some of the pieces where the piano starts, so I'd know what speed to start at. So we sit down, and I find that maybe about 75% of my attention is devoted to sight reading the notes. Some of the music I knew, a lot of it I didn't. About 20% of my attention is devoted to listening and watching him, because singers are notorious, or maybe famous for, the amount of fluidity they have. That's an essential part of the performance. And he's a good singer, a terrific singer, so therefore there's a lot of that coloring of sound, of adjusting of tempo and so forth. And I would say probably at the end of the concert, there were maybe about 6 times in that concert when we weren't spot on. Oh, what was that? Can I do arithmetic? There was 75% sight reading the notes, 20% paying attention. 5%. So I'm a certified nerd. 5% was sitting there thinking, how would I program this? Because in some sense, the way that we interact with computers, and this is supposed to be thinking about the future and reshaping the world, the way we interact with computers, tapping on keyboards, wiggling mice, it's unbelievable. Well, the nerdy expression is narrow bandwidth. It's unbelievably awful. It's terribly slow, it's full of errors, and the worst thing is if you have a good idea and you want to do something, it is so painfully slow that by the time you've got a fraction into it, the idea is half evaporating. You can't get, oh, Star Trek has it right. You sort of walk in there, go, and then it says, make it so, and everything happens. So surely what we need to do is to find a way to increase the ability to get our ideas into the machine and to refine the ideas and so forth. Okay, let's step back from that. We had some interesting cartoon description, and that was a fascinating imagery. We've heard some marvelous elements of poetry. We've heard about art. We've even seen some stuff about dress design. Surely there are aspects about art which really strike at us in a far more direct way. Yeah, we can type. We can wiggle a mouse. We can even have pads which we can draw on. Yes, we can put on gloves, and gloves can allow us to do all sorts of marvelous things. But the glove, if you like, is a substitute, a step towards actually understanding what people are doing with their hand. Take what a conductor does. Now, I have no idea what a conductor does. I sit in an orchestra and I follow them, and of course, like any orchestral musician, I believe that I can stand on the podium and do brilliantly. However, in recent years, I've come to know conductors, a particular one, very, very well, and I've learned that there's a lot more subtlety to it. And when you actually start looking at that, you realize there's an incredible amount that happens in the slightest gesture. It's not the, I'm going to do this big action. It's the subtle way of pulling the baton through almost an oily, gelatinous thing, which allows you to get a sense of how that phrase should be shaped. What would it be like if we could make it so that we could interact with the computer in a way which would pick up the subtlety, the nuance of gesture? Not just the grand things, the grab. Yes, we have to go through those steps. The stuff that was being described in the open source project of actually learning how to do this is an important part of that, but we want to be able to pick up that nuance. That nuance is not just about, oh, I'm going to take fine details, I'm going to put all these sensors on the body. No, it's a lot more than that. Part of that is actually picking up what goes on in our brain. It means that collaboration, we heard a talk already about collaboration. Collaboration with people in other areas is critical. Understanding how psychologists who spent their lives understanding how the brain works and measuring it and seeing how that works and checking to see that their assumptions are correct and refining in the usual way that we do as scientists, that's a critical part of it. So therefore, understanding what we expect to happen. Think about what magicians do. They lead you to make assumptions, to expect something in particular to occur, and then they pull the rug out from under you. So understanding expectation is critical. It's the same when we're performing music. Or if we're doing drama, we lead up to the great moment, and we play with silence. We build expectation. So in that exactly same way, we have to do this trick. So I have notes here. There's a course which I developed with some colleagues on computing and the arts. And I could argue, and here, having heard some marvelous poetry, you might reasonably be offended at this, and I would hope you would be. One could reasonably argue that the objective of this course is to show that machines can produce art just as good as people can. And then when I've got your backs up, we can see what we can achieve. After all, you can teach people to write poetry. You can teach people to paint. You can teach people to draw. You can teach people to dance. You can teach people to play instruments. You can teach people to sculpt. What are you teaching them? Yes, you're teaching them physical skills, but if I were to say to teach people how to write poetry was purely an exercise in learning those physical skills, you'd say, no, 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 it's much more than that. It's learning an understanding of what's going on. Learning how to create an image. But what's artificial intelligence about? Machine learning, these are all fancy ways of saying, well, I don't know what the rules are, but I'll tell you when you got it kind of right, and when you got it kind of wrong, and I'll leave you to find out what the rules are somehow inside yourself. And that's actually what we do in terms of machines. We don't know what the rules are. We can't program it, but we can tell them, do this, yes, 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 no, 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 that's not so good, no, no, no. Just as happened at school. Of course, I was from the old days. You did it right, well done. You did it badly, snap on the wrist. I mean, but that's the kind of trick that we have to follow. So if I'm talking about gesture and allowing the machine to be able to pick up these gestures, what have we actually done? When I was reading the stuff about the TED exercise, it was marvelous about talking about spreading ideas and challenging people to work together across all sorts of spectra, but also about actually doing something. So what can one do? A question came to mind of, I always have these tunes that come into my mind and I can't remember what they are, so I hum it into the computer and it'll tell me what it was I hummed. So I had some students working with me on this exercise, and it's fairly simple. After all, you hum into the machine and it just has to tell you what it was. Well, I mean, the hums are sort of, most people's humming has a certain similarity to the piece if you were humming it at the time, and other people may recognize it. But, well, the most reliable piece is actually the rhythm. That's usually pretty decent. The pitch usually stinks. Well, you can tell they went up a bit or down a bit. But by how much of a bit? So therefore what you do is you say, well, I can form this kind of spectrum. This is the rhythm, and it went up and it went down. It's remarkable how effective that is at picking out from a collection of things which tunes are a reasonable fit. So therefore all I need to do, enhance that a little bit, and then check against all recorded music. How do I get that information from all recorded music? And what was the person humming? Were they humming the tune? Were they humming that bit in the middle that was really catchy? Were they humming that plus the accompaniment? How do I... What was I doing when I was listening and watching David sing? I was listening and picking up all these aspects of change of tempo, change of color. What is that? How does one actually deal with the perception and in a precise way that I can get a machine to characterize? And anyway, suppose I've even done this. How do I select? I mean, it's the usual thing. You click on the various things, choose your favorite search engine, and it'll be the first, second, third, fourth. Suppose it's any good, I've got half a dozen things which are reasonable. You click on the first one. If it's right, good. If it's not, well, you click on the next. If that's not right, click on the next. Great, eh? No. Because if you click on the first one, I mean, they've got to be close if your search engine's any good. So if you click on the first one and it's not the right one, what have you done? You've just heard something really similar to what you were wanting to do, and it's not the right one. It's as if you were to be humming a tune, and your friend finishes it off for you, and it's not the tune you were thinking of. Now that's the tune that's in your mind. You can't remember what it was you were looking for in the first place. It stings. Well, that's fine. You can play back the hum. Now they're demoralized. They hurt themselves. So that's kind of the end of that exercise. Well, maybe not. Let's pretend that you had the time to relax and go to a fun restaurant or a fun pub or bar or whatever it might be. And you've got all these conversations going around you. How many of you have not It's not because of their loudness, it's because of their location. So, how do we determine where the sound is? Well, you all know about stereo. Louder on that side or louder on that side. That's boring. And actually nowhere near as effective or piquant as it would be to do it by timing information. So, sound from there, hits both ears simultaneously. Sound from there, hits that one before this one. Sound from there hits this ear a long time before that one, because this ear is in the shadow of the head. Discontinuity. Ooh, mathematics. Discontinuity. What do you do when you're trying to track down where a sound is? You move your head around a bit. You're playing around with where that sound is. You're playing with that discontinuity. Is that something I discovered? No! You talk to psychologists who've actually been doing this stuff. You talk to world experts on that, and they can say, oh, this is how it works. So then you take that knowledge. And then you say, okay, well, I probably need a big speaker. No, I don't need a big speaker array. How many ears have you got? 2. Shove on a pair of cheap headphones. Feed the signal into that ear, feed the signal into that ear, and control the timing. Now I can make it that I can have a signal there, 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 and there. 6 signals arranged around me, and it's like being in a crowded bar, and I'm listening to the particular sound that I'm trying to find. And I move my mouse. Mouse? No, 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 no. How many people listen to the conversation at the table next to them by moving their hand? That's so non-intuitive. That's nuts. So what do? You move your head. So you could shove an accelerometer, too much lost motion on an accelerometer. Magnetometer, shove a magnetometer on the top of your head. Well, a magnetometer only needs to be about that big. You can put it into the headphone band. So now you can use your head as a pointing device. There. And the nice thing is, we did an experiment taking 4 pieces of Bach, pitch shifting them so they're all in the same key, time shifting them so they're all at the same pace. So it was really similar. And we took people and we put them in a room over in Lincoln Hall in the music building and had them look around and try and play a piece of music, listen, now see if you can find where it is. And people were really good at doing that. They could tell by the location because they were all being played just above threshold level. And as you turned your head, so we made it louder. And you turn your head away, it makes that one louder. Oh, and the brain, more help from psychologists, the brain focuses on sound that moves. So if you're still looking in this direction, you want to enhance the element of concentration, make it move a little bit of wiggle. And that little bit of wiggling around there helps you to still focus on that. Great. So why do I care? So I can choose a piece of music. Video conferencing, change of subject. Great way of communicating with people. As long as you're not traveling in an airport, driving along in your car, or in an area where the bandwidth is too narrow so as you can't actually get a decent signal, it goes in and out. Okay, audio conferencing, that's fine. You can talk to lots of people all at the same time. I mean, if they have radically different accents or different sort of sounding voices, it's okay. Otherwise, you have to say, well, John's speaking here, and Philip's speaking there, and Peter, and your brain does this sort of exercise of saying, well, that's following on the kind of theme that John would probably say, Peter would never, that's probably John carrying on. You're doing all this extra processing in your poor little brain. Yeah, I know it's a big brain, there's a lot of unused activity, but nevertheless, you're doing all this processing up here. That's nuts. Why not have them arranged around a boardroom table, or whatever other kind of table you I don't care, and have them locate, boom, 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 boom. And what do you need? Oh, you need really high-tech stuff. Yeah. What's this high-tech stuff? Oh, a phone. So you need a phone with cheap headphones on the top, and if you want a magnetometer, well, these things have them there. You can put that in. No. But you can do something fairly inexpensive, really inexpensive, in order to decide who you're talking to. You can at least hear where people are because their sounds are coming in separate locations. And you know what? It really works. You can close your eyes even and imagine where they are. And you know what? It's really narrow bandwidth. So you can actually do this in the airport, in the car, in a distant location. And we've tried this. And it's kind of nifty. So what else might be kind of nifty about that? Of course, real life, you've got the people sat around there, and you chat privately to the person in your negotiation team, and then you talk to the people out there. What is life about but making alliances? I'm afraid shifting alliances, but not making alliances. I can do something in this virtual environment that I cannot do in reality. If I want to have a private chat with Mickey, I can pull her over to my private area. Put her back there. If I want to have a private chat with John, I pull him over there. Yeah, but now I have to have a private chat with Rada. She's miles away, so I'll pull her over there. I can pull her here and move people in and out of my private space. It works. It's cheap. Really cheap. It allows communicating with lots of people at the same time without overloading your poor little brain. What we need to do is to find a much better collection of ways of interacting with the world about us using these machines. Where do we get the ideas from? Psychology and the arts, because they reach into us in ways that the scientists can then capitalize on. And then feedback. Thank you very much.